Brenda's lawyer stood up, his voice measured and practiced. Your Honor, my client wishes to request a counseling session in an effort to repair the marriage. She believes that with the right support, this relationship can be mended. My lawyer stood immediately, his voice confident and unwavering. Your Honor, Mr. Porter has made it clear that he does not wish to reconcile. The facts of this case speak for themselves. Mrs. Porter has engaged in multiple extramarital affairs and is currently pregnant with a child fathered by one of these individuals. My client's intention is to move forward with the divorce. There was a murmur in the courtroom, whispers that seemed to echo my own disbelief at how this had unfolded. I clenched my hands together, keeping my expression neutral. I needed to stay strong. Brenda's lawyer pushed on, though there was a hint of desperation in his tone now. While my client acknowledges past mistakes, she believes that a counseling session meeting could bring closure and understanding to both parties, possibly healing some of the damage. I felt a surge of frustration. I leaned forward slightly, my voice steady but firm. Your Honor, I appreciate the court's time, but I have no interest in counseling. Too much has happened, and this marriage is beyond saving. I just want the divorce. Brenda's lawyer glanced at his notes before addressing the judge again. Your Honor, beyond the marriage itself, there is also the welfare of the unborn child to consider. My client believes that counseling is essential for ensuring that all parties, especially the child, have a chance at stability and support. My lawyer shifted slightly, but stayed silent, waiting for my cue. Couldn't keep my frustration contained any longer. I stood, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. I have no interest in raising that devil spawn that isn't mine. That cheating can find her father and let him raise it. I don't want to attend any counseling with that woman. Mr. Porter, one more word and I will hold you in contempt of court, he yelled at me. A quiet gasp moved through the room, and I caught a glimpse of Brenda's face, pale and tight-lipped. The judge's eyes narrowed as he looked at me over the rim of his glasses. A long pause, filling the space as if he were weighing every word. Mr. Porter, the judge said, his voice firm, while I understand your feelings, this court must consider all factors, including the emotional welfare of everyone involved. I am ordering both parties to attend counseling sessions as a final attempt to address these issues constructively. I will not attend. I scowled. I am ordering 1 month of counseling, 2 sessions per week. You will attend, Mr. Porter, or else. He glowed at me for a moment, then banged his gavel again. That is all. A week later, the room was silent, tense, with an air that seemed to buzz with unspoken words. The counselor, a middle-aged man with a calm demeanor and glasses perched on the edge of his nose, sat across from us, hands resting lightly on a notepad. Brenda sat next to me, looking down and twisting the fabric of her sweater nervously. Then Brenda started, her voice shaky. I just want to say don't. I snapped, my voice cold and sharp. Keep your mouth shut. Don't want to hear anything from you. The counselor, Mr. Hensley, glanced between us, his expression neutral but attentive. Ben, I know this is tough, but we're here to try to open a dialogue. Even if it's uncomfortable, speaking up can help us move forward. Will you give it a try? I crossed my arms, my jaw tightening. I'm here because the judge ordered it, not because I want to talk. I'll attend, but I don't have to participate. A brief silence followed, Mr. Hensley's eyes searching mine for any sign of willingness. When none came, he sighed, shifting his notepad slightly. Understand this is painful, but communication is a step towards understanding, even if it doesn't lead to reconciliation. After an hour, I said, okay, Dr. Good session, see you Thursday. I'm canceling the sessions and sending my report to the judge. She replied, even better, I said as I left the office. The judge was not pleased. Give me one reason why I should not hold your client in contempt, he growled at my lawyer. Your Honor, you ordered my client to attend the sessions. He attended the first session in accordance with the order. It was the counselor who called off the rest of the sessions. The counselor's report clearly states that he made no attempt to engage in the session. He put in headphones and ignored them the entire time. The judge responded the order was that he attend. My lawyer retorted he attended, given that the counselor felt that there was no benefit in continuing. I would like to request that you grant the divorce according to the petition. Not on your life, the judge said. I am ordering 4 weeks of counseling. Mr. Porter will attend and he will participate. The office was set up in exactly the same format as before. When I arrived, 2 chairs about a foot apart faced the doctor's desk. He sat behind it. The desk was bare, barring a yellow legal pad and a picture of a pretty woman, I would guess in her mid-30s, and a child that looked about 6 years old. Mr. Porter, the doctor said, please take a seat. Once again, I started to move the chair. Brenda put her hand out to stop me, and I jumped back. If you dare to touch me, I would consider it an assault and would punch your teeth into your stomach. You understand? Brenda gasped, pulling back went back to moving the chair, and then sat in it once again. I got out my phone. Mr. Porter, the judge ordered that you participate in the session. I know I said. My voice steady. I'm using my phone to record the session to prove my participation. My lawyer mentioned that some counselors might have their own agendas since my soon-to-be ex-wife has already been seeing you for some time. I feel you may have developed a relationship with her that could work. Against me, the counselor, Mr. Hensley, tilted his head. Slightly, what if I do not wish you to record the sessions? He asked, his tone calm but direct. Then I'll go back to court and request a different counselor, I replied. Firmly, I have that option. The only reason I didn't do that already was to avoid more delays. I just want to quickly get rid of this. Mr. Hensley turned his attention to Brenda, who was sitting with her arms crossed and eyes averted. Brenda, how do you feel about the sessions being recorded? She shrugged, barely looking up whatever she said with a hint of impatience, waving her hand. Dismissively, can we just start? The air in the room seemed to settle, a reluctant agreement hanging between us. All okay then, Mr. Hensley said, folding his hands in front of him. What I would like to do to start before we start, I interrupted, my tone cold. Can I ask a time question? Of course, he said, his voice measured. You can ask questions at any time. I may ask you to hold off during certain points, but right now, go ahead. He offered a small smile that I didn't return. Have you slept with her yet? Asked bluntly. Brenda gasped, a sharp intake of breath that cut through the room, but Mr. Hensley's expression didn't change. No, he said evenly. Brenda and I have not had, nor will we have, any kind of sexual contact. It would be highly inappropriate, even if I were not already very happily married. Does that answer your question? I looked at him for a long moment before nodding. I believed him, despite the fact that Brenda seemed to have been involved with nearly every man she'd encountered in the past year. All right then, Mr. Hensley continued smoothly. As I was saying to begin, I'd like to set our expectations. Since I have already spoken to Brenda on a few occasions, I would like her to outline what she hopes to achieve in these sessions and what her desired outcome would be. Ben, I'd ask that while she's talking, you refrain from comments or questions until the end. Once Brenda has shared her goals, I'll ask you to do the same. My goal is to see her get an incurable STD and watch her die a slow and painful death, to go to her grave and piss on it. That is the ultimate dream that I have, I said. Mr. Hensley shook his head and looked towards Brenda, who was already shaken by my response. Talk to me. Brenda, Mr. Hensley said, his tone gentle. Tell me what you would like Ben to hear. Brenda took a shaky breath, her voice wavering as she began. I want him to hear how sorry I am for hurting him. I know what I did was wrong, but it was just that he spent so much time at work and on his business trips, and I was lonely. Realized how much pain I caused him, and if I could go back and change the past, I would do anything to make it right. Love him more than anything else in the world. I know we can get past this. If he just give me a chance, I would show him I can be the best wife a man could ever want. We could raise this child together, give him a wonderful life, maybe even a sibling. I want us to be a family. Again, I know we can make it through this. Mr. Hensley offered a small nod and a faint supportive smile. Thank you, Brenda. Now, Ben, what would you like to say? She can write down her feelings on a piece of paper, then roll it up and stick it where the sun doesn't shine far enough to choke on it. The feelings mean nothing to me, and she is already dead to me. Brenda started to cry and ran out of the room. Please collide with something and die, I said as she ran out. That was not helpful, Mr. Hensley remarked, his voice steady but edged with concern. I don't want to be helpful, I spat back. That lying, cheating woman slept with half the city for a year, got herself pregnant, and then tried to pass the baby off as mine. If I hadn't already been suspicious and demanded a DNA test, I'd be stuck right now paying for someone else's kid. Tell me, doctor, how exactly should I be acting? It's natural to be angry, Ben, Mr. Hensley replied evenly, but you need to look past the anger to remember what you shared. I glared at him, my rage simmering. Do you even know what the hell you're talking about? I snap. Have you ever had the love of your life? The person you trusted with every piece of yourself, who you would die to protect, betray you so completely that you question your own sanity? How can someone who says they love you hurt you so deeply that it pushes you to the brink of wanting to end it all? And did you notice she hasn't even once truly apologized for what she did? Not for screwing all those men, not for the endless lies, not for getting herself pregnant, and not even knowing who the father is the only thing certain is that it wasn't the person who should have been giving her a child. Me. So don't sit there with your sanctimonious butt and your book knowledge telling me I need to move past my anger right now. My anger is the only thing keeping me going. Just let me get this cheating 304 out of my life so I can try to rebuild from the wreckage she left behind. I stood up, eyes locked on Mr. Hensley. Does that count as participation? I sneer as I turned and walked out. I asked Kathy to allow us to have this session without her, Mr. Hensley said as I walked into his office. The following week, I think we may be able to achieve more on a one-on-one basis to start as long as this still counts. Towards the court ordered. Counseling I'm more than happy to be in. The same room as that, I replied, plopping down in a chair and setting an envelope on my lap. Can we try to refrain from name-calling, please? It's not constructive and only gets in the way, he said. I'm not here to be constructive. I just want to get through these sessions and finally get that unfaithful person out of my life for good I never wanted to be. Here, she's just hell-bent on causing me as much pain as possible. She doesn't want the divorce because the prenup leaves her with nothing, so she's trying to force me into taking her back. It's not happening. And what about the child, Mr. Hensley pressed? He's innocent. Surely he shouldn't be punished for I don't give a damn about that. That kid, by your logic, I should take in every stray who couldn't keep her legs closed and ended up pregnant. Those kids have nothing to do with me, and neither does this one. Why are you so set on believing there's only one outcome here? He asked, his voice steady. You clearly loved her deeply. That kind of feeling doesn't just vanish. Overnight, your anger is masking it right now, but once it settles, and trust me, you'll find there are still feelings you can build on feelings that could help restore your relationship, maybe even make it stronger. That stupid smile was back again, and I felt the urge to punch him. Time to give him a taste of his own medicine. I gestured toward the picture. On his desk, you have a nice family. Said been married long. We're not here to discuss my personal life, he replied. I've been years, if my sources are correct. Childhood sweetheart, married right out of college, waited to have kids, and then little Ethan came along. What is he, 9 now? That picture must have been taken a couple of years ago. How did you? He started to ask. But I cut him off. Did you know your darling? Cheryl has her own secrets. I continued. Did you know that when she says she's at Pilates class on Wednesdays while you're working, she's actually at the Motel A on Patterson, screwing her personal trainer? That is completely ridiculous. He stammered, but I could see he was shaken. He had gone very pale, really. I said, pulling several photographs from the envelope and slapping them down on his desk one by one. They showed a pretty slender woman entering a hotel room with a young, muscle-bound man, his arm wrapped around her waist as they gazed lovingly at each other. I then pulled out a DVD and slapped it down too. There's footage from inside the room if you want actual proof of what they were getting up to. It's pretty graphic, so I wouldn't watch it if I were you. I made that mistake when I got my PI report. Those images will haunt me for the rest of my life. He looked like he might be sick. Oh, and one more thing, I added, pulling out a DNA report from the envelope. No, he said quietly. Please, God. No, it appears that the fitness instructor isn't the first. I guess he would be too young to have fathered Ethan, but whoever the father is, it isn't you, I said. Quietly, he stood up and bolted for what I assumed was a bathroom off his office. I could hear him retching violently now. Do you understand? I asked. When he finally sank back into his chair, tears streaming down his face, he looked at me with dead eyes. Do you see the pain she caused me and why I need to get her out of my life? I pressed. He nodded, looking utterly defeated. Good, I said, smirking a little. Now there's just one more thing you need to know. His face drained of color as he looked at me with dread. There's more, he asked, sounding pitiful. This is all fake, I shot back. None of what I just showed you is true. As far as I know, your wife is as loving and faithful as you thought she was, and Ethan is your son, but the photos he stammered. Photoshop, I replied. Grimly amazing what you can do with some Facebook posts in a little time and effort. If you had them examined by anyone with half a brain, they would tell you they're all fakes. I pulled up the originals. I'd created them from the DVD. He asked, his voice trembling blank. I replied flatly, and the DNA report is actually the DNA report. For that cheating 304's baby, I just changed the names and dates, I said. Watching his expression shift from confusion to disbelief, he sat there, stunned fresh, tears beginning to stream down his face. Why would you do that? What did you think you could possibly achieve by wrecking my marriage and my life? He asked, his voice cracking. That was not my intention, I shot back. That's why I told you right away it was all fake. I never wanted you or your family to suffer permanent harm. I just wanted you for once to truly understand the pain I went through, the feelings of loss, anger, and hurt. You had a taste of it for a few minutes. I'm still living with it. Your brief misery is my daily reality now. Forcing me to sit here with that and listen to her spout on about how she loves me and wants me back just means I have to relive the pain over and over. Again, there are laws against cruel and unusual punishment. Why don't they apply? Here, I just want to move on, pick up the pieces of my life and get on with it. Why can't you in the courts let me do that? I started gathering the documents from the table and shoved them back into the envelope. I'll leave this with you to dispose of, I said, my tone softening. Just a fraction. I'm actually sorry to have had to do this, but I needed you to understand, Your Honor. I have the report from the court-mandated counseling that my client was instructed to attend, my lawyer said, addressing the judge with a mixture of formality and urgency. I have a copy the judge growled, his eyes narrowing as he flipped through the pages. It appears that the counselor believes even after only 3 sessions out of the mandated 8 that this marriage is beyond saving for the well-being of all involved, including the child. The best course would be to allow its dissolution. Yes, Your Honor. I would request that you order the divorce to be completed as per the petition. My lawyer pressed. The judge stared at me for a long moment. I kept my gaze fixed straight ahead, refusing to meet his eyes, not wanting to reveal the turmoil inside. So ordered, he said finally, banging his gavel with a finality that echoed in the courtroom. The judge glanced at the financial records before him and delivered his ruling with a tone that made it clear this was not a matter to be taken lightly. There will be no alimony, he stated, looking up at us. Miss Brenda earns more than Mr. Porter, and both parties will retain their pre-marriage assets. The remainder will be divided 50-50. No alimony meant that I wouldn't be financially tethered to Brenda any longer. Brenda had lost her job, a fact that didn't surprise me in the least. One of her lovers had turned out to be a CEO, and I could only imagine the mess that would have ensued from that. I couldn't help but smirk internally at the irony of her situation then, as if it couldn't get any more ridiculous. I heard that she had filed a suit against 7 men, requesting the court to mandate DNA tests. I couldn't believe it. Here she was, dragging multiple men into the fray in an effort to sort out who the father of her child might be. The aftermath of the paternity test had set off a chain reaction that I couldn't have predicted. News spread like wildfire. All 7 wives of the men Brenda had been sleeping with filed for divorce against their husbands. I couldn't help but feel a grim satisfaction at the chaos she had unleashed on everyone involved. It was like a karmic whirlwind, and I was just a bystander watching the fallout. Last I heard, one of those angry wives had stormed into the courthouse and attacked Brenda. The irony of her breaking Brenda's nose was almost poetic in a way. After everything Brenda had done, seeing her face bloodied and bruised felt like some kind of cosmic justice. I had to admit I almost laughed when I heard about it. It was hard to feel any sympathy for her at that point. She had turned my life upside down, and now she was reaping what she had sown. Brenda had given birth to her child, but that didn't change how I felt about her or the situation. The cases against those 7 men were still lingering in the courts, and I wondered how long it would take for all that to finally be resolved. Honestly, I was just glad to be out of the mess. Brenda showed up at my house unannounced one afternoon, her face set with a mixture of desperation and entitlement. I could tell from the moment she walked through the door that she was on a mission to convince me to marry her. Again, she started spouting all this nonsense about how she had changed, how she realized what a mistake she had made, and how much she loved me. It was almost laughable considering everything that had happened. I stood my ground, refusing to let her manipulate me again. Brenda, it's over. We're done. You made your choices, and now you have to live with them, I told her firmly, trying to keep my cool, but she wouldn't let it go. She was relentless, her voice rising with every word, trying to make me feel guilty for not considering of a reconciliation. Just then, Nancy, my girlfriend, came out from the kitchen. She must have sensed the tension in the room because she didn't hesitate to confront Brenda. You need to leave. You're not welcome here, she said, her tone sharp and unyielding. Brenda's response was explosive. She launched into an abusive tirade, spewing venomous insults and trying to demean Nancy, clearly believing she still had the power to intimidate. I could see Nani's eyes narrow as Brenda continued her verbal assault. I felt a surge of protectiveness for Nancy, but I knew Brenda was unhinged and I didn't want to escalate situation. Then it happened in a moment of rage. Brenda lunged at Nancy, trying to hit her. That was a huge mistake. Nancy, who was no stranger to standing her ground, expertly sidestepped Brenda's wild swing and retaliated with a brutal counterattack. She kicked her and threw her on the floor. I stood there, half in shock and half in admiration, as Nancy quickly gained the upper hand. She was fierce, and Brenda, who had always relied on her manipulative tactics, was clearly outmatched. Before I knew it, Nancy had Brenda pinned against the floor, her anger palpable. It was surreal watching Brenda, the woman who had once held so much control over my life, reduced to this. I could hardly believe what I was witnessing. Get the hell out of our lives. Brenda, you're not welcome here, Nancy shouted in the midst of the chaos. I pulled out my phone and called the cops. Brenda was screaming by this point, but her words fell on deaf ears. The cops arrived shortly after, and Nancy calmly explained everything. They stepped in, quickly assessing the situation. Brenda, still defiant, tried to put on a show, claiming she was the victim, but it didn't take long for the officers to see through her act as they handcuffed her and led her away. I felt an odd mix of emotions, relief, satisfaction, and a sense of finality. It was the end of an era for me, the last remnants of her toxicity being dragged out of my life. I turned to Nancy, who was still shaking with adrenaline. You were incredible, I said, feeling grateful to have her by my side, just doing what had to be done, she replied with a hint of a smile. In that moment, I knew I had made the right choice. I was ready to leave the past behind and embrace a future with someone who truly valued me. Someone who wouldn't try to tear me down, dear. Listeners, please share your thoughts in the comment section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.